Welcome to the Partnernomics Show, where industry thought leaders discuss the hottest topics in partnerships, ecosystems, and innovation. The Partnernomics Show is brought to you by IOLite Solutions, a product incubator specific to Salesforce. Now here's the host of the Partnernomics Show, Mark Brigman.
Welcome back to another episode of the Partnernomics Show. It's good to be with you again. Today, we are joined by a special guest and a guy that I am now able to call my friend. We've worked together long enough, but Mike Shine from Shipware. So Mike is the partner development manager for Shipware, and Mike's had the opportunity to go through some of our courses. We've collaborated over the last couple of years, but asked Mike if he'd be willing to come in and share some of his insights. He was nice enough to do that. So here we go. Mike, how are things going, buddy?
Good, Mark. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Really looking forward to this.
Absolutely. Man, you said you guys are getting hammered with some more rain up there in Jersey. Is that right?
Yeah, it's either 100 degrees or it's raining. A lot of storms, this summer. So it's been an up and down summer.
Awesome, but hey, well, let's go ahead and jump in here. But before we do, I'd like to just have you take a minute and share a little bit about your background and how in the world you jumped into this crazy world of partnering with the rest of us.
Yeah, so interesting background. I've spent the majority of my career on the logistics and e-commerce side of things, primarily as an account executive, so direct sales. Years ago, I worked in telecom, so I've had an extensive background on the sales side, on the direct side, and really bought into the partnership strategy going forward here. So I've been at Shipware for a couple of years. I was an account executive, and based on the relationships and the ecosystem that I've built over the years, Shipware was looking to grow their partner program, and they thought I'd be a good fit. So here I am today, really following the Partnernomics methodology that I've learned from you, and it's been great. And we've seen a lot of growth, and this is where I really see the trending success coming from, partnerships.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Hey, well, I'm going to go ahead and fire in the first question. And it's actually a great segue talking about your background being in sales. But I'll ask you, what is the difference, right? What is the difference between sales and partnering? And just given the last 4 years or so of your career, just looking at that, being on both sides of the fence, love for you to let us know what's the difference that you see between sales and leveraging partnerships.
Yeah, Mark, that's a great question. And there is a big difference. Being in sales for a long time and now being on the partner side, I really see the difference. Sales is transactional. What you're solely focusing on getting contracts, new revenue generating clients across the finish line. It's really laser focused on selling products and services. The scoreboard for sales, it resets every month or quarter, depending on your organization. Partnerships, on the other side, are highly relationship focused. It's strategic, it's brainstorming. You're creating creative ways to create long-term growth. Typically in partnerships, it could take up to 18 months to see the fruits of your labor. But once you get going and you get that engine rolling, it really starts moving. Those activities that you're doing, it's marketing, it's account mapping, it's very strategic. You're building a relationship one-on-one with your partners throughout multiple folks in those organizations. So, partner professionals, you need to be really entrepreneurial, creative thinkers, and strategic process focused. Those are the ones that we're seeing that are driving the most success. But so there is a big difference being on both sides. I'm really liking the partnership side of it. I think this was meant for me in this part of my career. And this is where I really see the growth potential and where the market is headed.
One of the things, so I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. Both my parents, lifelong business owners, worked for themselves their entire careers. And whenever I started my career in partnerships, it felt like it gave me an opportunity to kind of be my own boss. I mean, you'd mentioned like entrepreneurship or being entrepreneurial. It's not always like perfectly scripted, right? Whenever you are a sales professional, it's like this very linear path and you know exactly what to do step by step by step. But in the partnering side, it's more like there's tentacles to this thing. It's not a straight kind of direct line in that. and it opens a lot of opportunities for even creativity to get out. You mentioned, like, brainstorming and doing these different sessions and looking at value comes in so many different ways, right? We kind of talk about this a lot, but value comes in so many different ways. I think it's one of the things that we need to do as partnering professionals, and something that makes partnering so different is looking at the value that your partners are wanting to get out of this, because it can come in a lot of different ways. As it seems, I mean, is that something that you see in your day-to-day as a partnering professional?
Absolutely. There's a lot of work that goes into it. It's account mapping, it's putting together webinars, it's looking at some of the low-hanging fruit of where there's opportunity. I think, there's so much competition today in everything that you do, that having more strategic stickiness into your client base is super, super important. And where can you bring in, your partnering folks that can provide additional value for your clients? Because when those agreements come up and their contract terms come up, that client is going to say, hey, Shipware, Mike, he helped me in multiple areas of my business. I want to continue this relationship. Mike has something to offer, right? I can grow my business, I can grow my revenue and things of that nature. So the day-to-day process, obviously it's a little different than direct sales. It's more strategic and things of that nature, but there's a lot of activities that go with it. And you build long-term strategic relationships that are going to follow you for years to come. So I think it's super critical to have these relationships. It's just really going to help you in your career path.
Mike, another thing that you mentioned, I had a recent conversation with a client on this, and that is, there's a lot of different organizations that stand up referral programs. That's, pretty direct, pretty straightforward, and kind of an easy way to even get into the partnering motion. But I encourage them to don't assume that your partners are looking for revenue shares or things like that, because the vast majority of them, they want what you want, and that is some leads, some opportunities, some ways to accelerate their sales cycles, to get to clients, and to put their solutions in clients' hands. Is that also kind of what you're seeing over the last couple of years?
Yeah, it goes back to just that stickiness. And a lot of our partners that I work with, they don't even want to participate in the revenue share. They want to provide additional value for their clients. Some might, take that revenue share and put it to charity and things of that nature. So it's just about where can you have more entanglement in your client base, have multiple solutions in that account, and that's just going to keep that relationship for a long-term partnership.
Yeah. Well, time's up on this one. Let's go ahead and hit that second question. That is, what are some of the red flags whenever you're recruiting, you're having these discovery calls, you and a potential partner, that partner candidate, kind of having some conversations, filling each other out, seeing if it's a fit? What are some of those red flags that you might come across where you know that you really need to maybe second guess this one?
Yeah, it's a good question. And there's a lot of red flags. And after going through Partnernomics, we've really been able to identify those red flags really quickly. So, some of the red flags are right from the get-go, there's no commitment on following a process. It's just, how many leads are you going to send us? Maybe the organization doesn't have a structured partnering process, and they're not willing to kind of play ball under the Partnernomics methodology. So they're not committed to bi-weekly and weekly monthly touch points to collaborate. And that's really, you can't say, hey, let's be a partner and we'll talk every 3 months. When you're working with a partner and you're aligned and you're trying to build a strategy, you have to, constantly communicate. So they're not communicating on the KPIs and where we want to get to. Another big sign is, a partner profile form. So looking at that as a weeding out process where you can, kind of determine really quickly what kind of partner they are, right? So if they're not willing to invest like 10 minutes into completing a form, how committed are they going to be into, this strategic relationship? And, a lot of partners to manage, right? You want to make sure that less is more. You don't need, 50 partners. You can have less partners as long as you have the alignment and you guys are on the same page. So, also they're not open to account mapping and sharing kind of their client base. They're not using a partner relationship management tool. So the alignment is kind of crystal clear, though. You need to have the framework in place, right? Strategic partnering plans, operational partnering plans, term sheets, goals and milestones. Those are the kind of things that you can have in your early on conversations to kind of weed through is this partner going to be a good fit for me? Can I see the opportunity here? And, are they really engaged and they on the same page with us? So, you know, failing to plan is planning to fail, right? So there needs to be a collaborative understanding. Why are we partnering? We're not just partnering to be partners, right? We have a long-term vision of where we want to go. There's a clear path to execute on. We're setting in 90-day plans on what we need to accomplish right out of the gate. To get out of the gate fast and hit the ground running is super critical in partnerships. The ones that you get out of the gate really fast are the ones that you see the most success from long term. If it's kind of just stagnant and it's taking months to go, more than likely it's probably not going to be as successful as you want it to be. So, we're putting goals in place, milestones, and we're kind of tracking to those results. And at the end of the day, it's about getting results. It's about taking action to get there. And, utilizing the Partnernomics methodology, has been vital in seeing those results and continued growth and staying on a plan and a process going forward.
So Mike, we always talk about it's easy to get a partner, right? It's pretty easy to get somebody to sign a contract, a little click through agreement, but it's really hard to get a productive, aligned partner. I think you were talking a little bit about recruiting here and red flags. Man, I'm absolutely convinced that partnering programs, one of the fastest things they can do to become more productive is to say no more. Be willing to walk away and say no to a partner because they're not a good fit. And I would say the vast majority of programs, they could benefit by having a more diligent, a more rigorous vetting process of partners. I love what you guys go through and really kind of upfront from your partnering plan, having criteria where you're scoring them and grading them and really objectively evaluating the fit for the program. And it's not even just that they can help you, but you have to have a way to help them. We also say a partnership that works for one partner works for 0 partners, because it's just a matter of a few months or a few quarters, and then they become disengaged because you're not able to, maybe your organization's not able to provide value to them. So being able to do that. But you hit on something that I think is really critical: first 90 days plan. Can you take just a minute and kind of talk a little bit about like what is a first 90 days plan and kind of what's the philosophy, the theory behind that?
Yeah, it's really just putting that process in place of wanting to get out of the gate fast. So obviously it's, getting the agreement buttoned up of what the terms are going to look like, putting those goals of, where do we want to get to in 30 days? What activities do we want to do in 60 days, 90 days, and so forth. So it's just putting in that, anything that you do in life, you have to have goals and metrics in place to get there, to see that vision. So yeah, I mean, it's a getting engaged with the internal folks at the organizations, throughout the organizations, so they know that you're their partner and you're their trusted advisor. It's doing partner spotlights in terms of getting in front of their teams and providing a 30 to 45 minute overview of what you do and the benefit you can bring to their client base. It's setting those cadences like we talked about. Is it going to be weekly? Is it going to be bi-weekly, monthly, things of that nature? So it's just kind of putting a plan in place and putting those data points in of, okay, these are the things we definitely want to check the box, because we know if we do check the box and we're on track, that after that 90 days, we're going to be ready to rock and we're going to be ready to see some really fast results.
Exactly, man. I love that. I love how you guys do that. And like you guys, make that a part of your recruiting process. If that partner candidate is not willing to play that way, they're not going to be a good partner. Let's go ahead and fire up the next question. And that is, What is your biggest learning so far now that you've been in the partnering seat for, a couple years, going on a couple years? What has been your biggest learning so far?
Yeah, Mark, there's been a lot I've learned, and it's been all really, really solid. So, I've learned that there is a science to partnering, right? Prior to Partnernomics, it was just kind of going through the motions, but there's a science, just like direct sales, right? Like going through spin selling and Sandler training. There's a science to partnering and a methodology. So, strong relationships and partnerships, they're the key to long-term sustainability. No matter where your career takes you, having those solid relationships will follow you and allow you for continued growth. I learned, you have to be patient, right? It's critical because partnering takes time. I've been in the partnering role now for some time, and I've been doing it for about 16 months, and it's finally starting to see the fruits of my labor and come together. The results are showing, things of that nature. The ecosystem is building even further. Like we talked about, less is more. You don't need 50 partners. You can have 10, 15, 20 partners that are really cranking on all cylinders. That makes sense. And those partners are going to introduce you to other partners, and things of that nature. So, there it is. I've learned a lot, Mark, and it's very different, but I definitely am enjoying it.
Yeah, but I like, what you say there, less is more. And I think that, and also mentioning that partnering is a science. And I truly believe that even still today, right? Partnering professionals view partnering and they approach partnerships 95% art. There's this blank canvas. We have a bunch of paint. We're not really sure what this thing is going to look like whenever we get done with it in a couple hours, but we have a general idea that we have an opportunity to bring science to partnerships to get more predictable, more repeatable outcomes, but it requires process. It requires a discipline to go through that and not just feeling it out step by step, as you say. But I think, some of the biggest learnings is understanding that there is a step by step process that we can go through, which will help us get more repeatable outcomes with our partners. I think that's one of the biggest, mistakes that we see out there. We're still just feeling this way through, and then our executives are blind as to what we're doing. There's no explicit plans that are out there, and when people don't know what they don't see, they don't trust. And that's, when our executives that were wanting to support us, if they don't see progress, if they don't see that we're executing against the plan, how can we expect them to trust that we're on a correct path? So last question I'll fire up here, and that is, where do you guys see, maybe within your own company or within your own industry, where do you see partnering going, or how have you seen it, it's even evolve over the last year and a half to where, what do you think partnerships will be able to do and continue to do for you guys?
Yeah, it's growing tremendously. It's specifically in the logistics and e-commerce space. It's a big industry, but it's also small. Everybody knows everybody. And even the partners that I work with introduce me to other partners. And like the ecosystem is just so tight. So partnering specifically in my industry is super, super critical. Being that cold calling conversions are getting lower and lower as time goes on, there's got to be a shift, right? Companies aren't answering the phones. They don't return voicemails like they did 10, 15, 20 years ago. They want warm introductions from people they trust. An example would be, just like having to go to a doctor if you have an illness. What do? You ask that circle of trusted relationships. Who's the best doctor, Mark, in that area of expertise? Who should I go see? Things of that nature. So the warm introductions, they already have that comfort level, and that wall is down. There's so many scams today as well. So I just see partnering as the future, and a lot of companies are moving to that, and lowering their business development activities and kind of strategy. And you still need that, but putting a focus on strategic partnerships because the conversions are higher, right? Um, you know, I saw Harvard Business Journal, 85% of buyers are now starting purchasing with a referral, right? Call calling, we're seeing a 1% callback rate. There's like a 20% open rate of outbound email that are cold. A, get strategic, invest those cycles in cultivating your relationships, and you're going to see a higher conversion rate. You're going to see growth and see success in your organization. The conversions are slim with cold calling. So I would say it's really time to focus and just kind of my focus on partnerships. Put the resources into that part of your business, and that's going to really drive the growth that you want to see long term. Because look, I've been doing this for over 20 years, direct sales and partnerships. It's changed. When I was in telecom, I could make 100 phone calls and I could get 3, 4, 5 meetings. You don't see that today. You have to make way more calls, and that wall is up. Like I said, there's nothing like a warm referral. So just to start that conversation, it's super critical.
Yeah, you mentioned the word trust a couple of times, just in our conversation. I think that's so true. We rely on our trusted folks to make those recommendations to us. And I think just with technology and so many different ways to communicate with our trusted network, it's just faster for us to get referrals, to reach out to our network, let them know what we're looking for, and completely circumvent. As you mentioned, man, we totally see this in our business, other businesses, clients' businesses. I mean, that wall of direct sales is getting taller and taller by the day. Who answers their phone anymore if you don't understand, if you don't recognize the number, and spam bots, things like that. I mean, you can't even get a cold email through systems, let alone, just getting them in front of folks. So it's definitely leaning on those relationships. But another thing that I love that you guys are doing is really going into, exploring co-selling as a real strategic move. And you mentioned ecosystems, just looking at those ideal customers that are out there, what are they looking for? And then teaming up with some of your partners, that have great solutions, complementary solutions, where you can go in and, and kind of knock on the doors, but do it together and truly provide those clients with a more holistic solution, and even a more deeply integrated and aligned solution, as opposed to them buying them separately. Talk to us for just a second about that.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The relationships are key. The co-selling part of it is a big thing that we're looking into right now. Where can you join forces with your partners to, bring multiple solutions into that account, create the more stickiness that we talked about? So there's a tremendous upside there. And I think we're going to see a big shift in focus on the co-selling activities going forward, big time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we have people aligning, we have education aligning, we have technology aligning. There's a lot of exciting things coming up in the future for partnerships people. But Mike, thank you so much for your time, man. Thanks for taking some time out to chat with us, to share your insights, and thank you for your collaboration with Partnernomics, man. I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the last year and a half.
Same, Mark. Really appreciate this opportunity. Always great to collaborate with you. Going through Partnernomics has been invaluable for my career. It's really taken me to another level. So super appreciative of everything you've done, and looking forward to continually working with you. Really appreciate this opportunity.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Partnernomics Show. Don't forget to subscribe to get the newest episodes at thepartnernomicsshow.com. Special thanks to our sponsors, Iolite. To learn more about Iolite, visit iolitepro.com. And Partnernomics, the science of partnering. To learn more about the suite of Partnernomics courses, coaching programs, and consulting services, visit partnernomics.com. See you on the next episode.